The cop shoved my daughter so hard, her knees hit the concrete, that I heard the impact through the phone, even over the rotor noise. 50 people stood there, phones up, watching a grown man in uniform scream. Stop resisting at a 12-year-old girl who wasn't even moving. Tell me something. If that were your kid, what would you have done? My name is Sarah Mitchell, Colonel, United States Army. And this is the story of the day I flew a Black Hawk helicopter into a shopping mall parking lot because a cop decided my black daughter was trash. A rich woman decided her lie mattered more than my child's life, and an entire system decided to call that normal. Yeah, that happened. It didn't start like a movie. It started like any other. Morning in my kitchen. Sun coming through the window. Coffee half cold on the counter, my boots lined up by the door, and my brain already at Fort Harrison 50 miles north. I was going through my mental checklist. Training schedule, 1 senior officer out sick, live fire exercise at 1400, debrief at 1600. While my hands checked my gear out of habit fingers, running along straps and buckles muscle memory from 20 years in uniform. Then I glanced over and saw my daughter, and the whole world shrank down to that little kitchen table and a plate of overcooked eggs. Lily was 12, that weird age where they want to be grown and small at the same time, sitting in her usual chair, fork in hand, poking scrambled eggs she'd cooked herself. She was trying to be helpful, trying to act like she wasn't disappointed, trying not to look at my uniform like it was stealing me away. Her braids were pulled back with a purple scrunchie. Her Target jeans had a little paint stain on one knee from a school project, and her eyes had that cloudy look I've learned to recognize better than any mission briefing. I set my gear down and sat opposite her, rested my forearms on the table like I had nowhere else to be. "Talk to me, baby," I said. "What's going on in that head of yours?" She tried to give me that "I'm fine" smile. The one kids think they invented. Then her shoulders dropped just a little. "I was going to Riverside Plaza today. Remember?" she said, staring at her plate. "I've been saving for your birthday present. I have $150. I counted it 3 times last night. I was going to surprise you. You ever have a moment where pride and heartbreak hit you at the exact same time? Like your chest is too small for both feelings, and you don't know whether to laugh or cry. That was me sitting at that table. 6 months she'd been saving $5 here from helping Mrs. Chen with her garden. $10 there from extra chores. A little birthday money she could have blown on candy or games. And she didn't. Every single dollar she held on to for me. "Baby, that is incredibly sweet," I told her. And my voice almost came out wrong, but "Are you sure you want to go alone? I can reschedule the training. We can go together another day." Her head snapped up so fast I had to bite back a smile. "Mom." "No," she said. "Your job is important. They need you there. And I'm 12 now. I can handle a shopping trip." I looked at her face, at the way her jaw set when she decided something. That stubborn streak. I know exactly where she got it. I've walked into rooms full of men twice my size, twice my age, watched their faces change when they realized the highest rank in the room belonged to a black woman. Felt that same stubborn need to prove I belonged there, uniform and all. But here's the thing. The world doesn't see a 12-year-old black girl the same way it sees a 12-year-old white girl. You know exactly what I mean. So I did what mothers with too much experience of ugly things do. I hesitated. I wanted to wrap myself around her like armor and never let go. And I wanted to let her grow, to let her be proud of herself for doing this on her own. Both at once. Finally, I unclasped my military ID bracelet. It's not pretty. It's not fancy. Just a strip of brushed steel. With my name. My rank, my service number etched into it, a government issue, years of sweat and sand and time worn into it, until it feels almost soft against your skin. That bracelet has been more places than most people ever see in a lifetime. I took Lily's wrist, fastened it around her, watched it slide halfway down her hand, because her bones are still so small. "Take this," I said. "If anything happens, anything at all, you show this, and you call me immediately. That is not just a mom rule, that is your legal right. Minors can contact their guardians. Do you understand?" She looked down at the metal like it was some kind of magic charm, then back up at me, more serious now. "Yes, ma'am," she said. "Good," I said, tapping the table. "Now what do we say?" She groaned a little because this is one of those things she's been saying since she could talk, but she smiled anyway, and we said it together. "I am strong, I'm smart, and I am worthy of respect. I want you to remember that line, because it's going to show up again in a place you won't be expecting." We talked a little more about school, about how some parents at pickup made comments when I showed up in uniform. How Madison's mom said it was inappropriate, how Madison asked if I was really a colonel, or just pretending. I could feel that familiar tightness in my chest, that exhaustion that comes from explaining the same racism in 1,000 different polite words. Some people are used to seeing power look a certain way. I told Lily, when it looks like you or me, they can't accept it. So they call it uppity, or too much, or inappropriate, because the truth doesn't fit their worldview. But their problem is not your identity. "Does it ever stop?" she asked. "If you work hard enough, follow all the rules, will people treat you fairly?" I took a breath because this is the part where so many parents want to lie. "I wish I could tell you yes," I said. "I can't. Some people will judge you before they know you. They'll attach their fears to your skin. What matters is that you know who you are. You stand up for yourself when you can. You pick your battles, and if it gets too much," I tapped the bracelet, "you call Mike. I don't care where I am or what I'm doing. You call, and I will move heaven and earth to get to you." Those were not just words. I had no idea how literally I was about to mean them. Quick pause here, because to really understand why I reacted the way I did later, you need to know what came before Lily. Before the bracelet, before the uniform ever touched my skin. When I was 18, I watched my big brother Justin get slammed onto the hood of his own car during a routine traffic stop. Dark sedan, black driver. Vague description of a robbery suspect. That's all it took. He did everything right, hands on the wheel, voice calm. "Yes, officer." No, officer, exactly the way our parents taught us. Because they knew the stakes. Didn't matter. By the time it was over, his collarbone was broken. He had 3 cracked ribs, a concussion, and a nice, shiny criminal charge for resisting. Even though the only thing he resisted was being treated like a punching bag. I screamed from the passenger seat. Tried to record with my flip phone. Got threatened with arrest for interfering. We went to court with witnesses. Medical records. A public defender doing his best. And we still watched that officer walk out clean. The judge calling his violence appropriate force. Justin's arrest record followed him everywhere. Job applications, apartment applications, background checks. That one lie turned into a shadow that never left him. He died of a heart attack at 38, but if you ask me, it started on the hood of that car. I joined the Army, not because I was overflowing with patriotism, but because I wanted to understand power. Who held it, how they used it, how to fight it. The military taught me disciplined strategy leadership. I learned how to move people and machines, how to read a battlefield in seconds. But it didn't teach me everything I needed, so I taught myself the rest. On deployments between missions, I studied constitutional law on my bunk. I made friends with JAG officers, sat in on their trainings when I could read case law until my eyes blurred. I learned statutes and precedents, Not because I like legalese, but because I refused to ever again stand in front of authority and not know exactly what weapons I had. I promised myself that if I ever had kids, they would never be as powerless as Justin was that night. So when I say I will move heaven and earth to get to my daughter, I don't mean it like a Hallmark card. I mean it like someone who knows exactly which statute to throw and which general to call. Okay, back to Lily. An hour after that kitchen conversation, I was in a Blackhawk heading north, headset on mind, on the exercise ahead, completely unaware that my daughter was about to go through her own version of Justin's nightmare, updated for the age of social media and designer handbags. At 9:46 a.m., Lily climbed onto the number 7 bus to Riverside Plaza. She chose a middle seat, not too far back, not too far forward, pulled out this thick library book about the Tuskegee Airmen. Black pilots fighting Nazis overseas while fighting racism in their own military. She was obsessed with them for a while. I didn't realize how symbolic that choice of book would be. A few pages in, she felt it, that prickling on the back of your neck when someone is staring, and not in a friendly way. 2 rows up across the aisle sat a white woman in her 60s, pearls, at her neck designer handbag in her lap. Blazer way too formal for the summer heat. Lily glanced up, smiled politely, because I raised her to be polite, then went back to her book. The woman didn't smile back. Her eyes moved from Lily's face to her backpack, to her book, and back again. And then that hand, almost on autopilot, curled around her purse and pulled it closer, tighter, like my daughter's eyes could unzip it from across the aisle. Lily tried to focus on the words on the page, but you know how it is when your skin is the thing being read, not the book. After another minute, the woman stood up, gathered her things, and moved 3 rows further back, hugging her bag to her chest, like her life depended on it. No words spoken, but the message was loud. You people, Lily's heard that phrase before. Sometimes it's followed by, are always sometimes by never, but it always lands the same way. You don't belong. You are other. You are less. An older man behind them lowered his newspaper, watched the whole performance, then snapped it back up like a curtain. A young woman with earbuds noticed too, then buried her face in her phone, as if Instagram just got fascinating at that exact second. Nobody said a word. The silence around racism is almost as loud as the slurs. Lily felt her cheeks burn, wanted to say something to call it out. But there's this calculation every black kid learns to do way too early. What will happen if I speak, and will it make it worse? At 12, she knew that math. So instead, she reached under her sleeve, touched the cool metal of my bracelet, and whispered to herself, I am strong, I am smart, I am worthy of respect, 3 times until the sting behind her eyes faded enough for her to stand up straight when the bus pulled in. At Riverside Plaza, the automatic doors sighed open and let her into that familiar mall world. Icy air conditioning, shiny tile pretzel smell, parents with strollers, retirees, power-walking clusters of teens being loud on purpose. Just another Saturday, except it wasn't. She checked the directory, found Riverside Fine Jewelry, 2nd floor near Macy's entrance C, and headed for the escalator. That's when Gregory Adams noticed her. Gregory was one of those I take my job very seriously. Mall security supervisors, late 50s, salt and pepper mustache, radio clipped to his belt. Mall safety supervisor embroidered over his heart. He had that stance, feet planted, scanning like he was protecting a nuclear facility instead of a food court. The second Lily stepped on the escalator, he stepped on too. Not right behind her. Of course, he wasn't stupid. He left a solid 20 feet, enough for plausible deniability, close enough to keep her in his line of sight. 2 years earlier, I'd sat my daughter down and told her something I never wanted to say out loud. There will be days when security guards follow you through stores just because you're black. It's wrong. It's unfair, but until we change the system, you need to be aware. At the time, she thought I was being dramatic. Watching Gregory mirror her every move, she realized I wasn't. She stopped to look in a bookstore window. He stopped a few steps back and stared at a directory he definitely didn't need. She turned toward the food court. He turned toward the food court. 3 white teenagers almost took out an elderly couple roughhousing near the smoothie stand. Gregory didn't even flinch. His eyes were glued to Lily. Still, she lifted her chin, touched the bracelet again, and reminded herself, I have money. I have a right to be here. I am not doing anything wrong. You still with me? Because this is the part where everything that's been simmering quietly in the background comes to a boil. Riverside fine jewelry looked like every upscale mall jeweler. Dark wood, thick carpet, soft lighting that made every diamond look like a star, classical music humming quietly in the background. It smelled like money and perfume and Windex. Inside that store was Patricia Reynolds. Patricia was 52, the kind of rich that has a schedule just for being rich. Country club membership, 3 charity boards, weekly hair appointments, personal trainer, a husband who was a successful attorney. Daughter at some fancy private academy. She lived in the nice part of town called Riverside Heights, and in her head, that meant other people were supposed to stay out of it. She swept into the store at 10:32 a.m. heels, clicking sunglasses on her head like a crown. I called ahead about the diamond necklace, she announced, without greeting Platinum setting the one in the window. I'd like to see it now. Ella. Johnson, 25. 2 years into that job. Gemologist paycheck to paycheck, but professional as they come. Looked up from rearranging engagement rings and felt her stomach drop a little. Patricia was a VIP customer, which in retail translates to spends money and makes your life miserable. Of course, Mrs. Reynolds, Ella said, forcing a smile. Right away, she went to the window display to retrieve the necklace. 3 carats platinum, $3,500. While Patricia set down her phone, her car keys with the Mercedes logo, her diamond earrings, and a diamond bracelet easily worth $8,000, all on the glass counter. Right then, the door chimed again. Lily stepped inside. Clean but inexpensive clothes. Small backpack worn at the corners. Old sneakers. Hopeful eyes. She paused at the threshold, scanned the store, then drifted toward the case with the more modest pieces. Simple silver bracelets, small pendants, things in the $100 to $200 range. Exactly where she belonged, exactly where her budget fit, and exactly where she had every right to stand. Patricia saw her instantly. Her shoulders went rigid. Her hand slid automatically over her handbag, and her voice sharpened like a knife edge. "Excuse me," she snapped loud enough for Lily to hear. "I was here first. Can you help me before you get distracted?" That word hung in the air. Distracted. Like Lily wasn't even a person, just visual noise. Ella's heart sank. "Of course, Mrs. Reynolds," she said, then turned to Lily with as much warmth as she could put in her voice. "I'll be right with you, sweetheart. Feel free to look around." Lily nodded and wandered to a different display, the one with a silver bracelet that had a little star charm. $145. Every bit of her savings. The star made her think of our nights on the porch tracing constellations, while I told her ancient stories and deployment stories, and the ones I can never tell her yet. Meanwhile, Patricia slid the necklace around her neck, held her chin up, watched herself glitter in the mirror. After a few minutes of deliberation that wasn't really deliberation, she decided to buy it. Ella completed the transaction quickly and neatly, because the sooner Patricia left, the better the day usually went. While they were finishing up, Patricia did what she always did. Took off her own jewelry to see how the new piece looks without distraction. Her diamond bracelet sat on the counter right under the overhead camera, sparkling like bait on a hook. Ella handed her the boxed necklace. Patricia picked up her earrings, put them back on then. And this part is crucial. She picked up the bracelet and dropped it into her purse. Clear as day on the footage, time-stamped 10:47:23 a.m. She snapped her purse closed, scooped up her keys and phone, and walked out, a heels-tapping mind already on the next errand. Lily, still at the other case, never came within 15 feet of that counter. Here comes the twist. 2.5 minutes later, the door slammed open so hard, the little bell jangled like an alarm, and Patricia came storming back inside, face flushed, eyes wild. "Where is it?" she demanded. Ella looked up, startled. "Mrs. Reynolds, is everything all right? My bracelet." Patricia's voice went high and tight. "My diamond bracelet. $8,000. I had it right here and now. It's gone." "Where is it?" Ella blinked, replaying the last few minutes in her head. She was almost sure she'd seen Patricia put it in her purse. Almost. "Ma'am, I gave you back all your jewelry," Ella said carefully. "I saw you put everything into your bag." "I would never just throw an $8,000 bracelet in my purse," Patricia snapped, hands diving inside, pulling items out. Dumping them on the counter, someone took it. Someone must have. Out came her wallet, her sunglasses, her compact, her lipstick, her keys, a wad of receipts, a pack of tissues, the box with the new necklace. No bracelet. Her head snapped up, eyes landing on the only other person in the store, Lily. "It was here when she walked in," Patricia said, guiding. "I want her bag checked. I'm not leaving until you check her bag." Lily froze like someone had hit pause. "What?" "No, I didn't," she said, voice small. "I haven't been near the counter. I've been over there the whole time looking at that bracelet." "Ask her." She pointed at the case she'd been standing at for 12 long minutes. Ella felt the floor tilt. She knew what she'd seen, but she also knew what Patricia's spending meant to the store and what her complaints could do to Ella's job. "Mrs. Reynolds, I really don't think," she started. "I want her bag checked." Patricia cut her off, voice rising. "Right now. If she didn't take it, she won't mind showing us. You hear that logic, right? That twisted poisonous. If you're innocent, you shouldn't mind being treated like a criminal." The office door opened, and Trevor Wilson, the manager, came out. 35 pressed shirt tie, a little too tight. Smile, a little too practiced. "What's the issue?" he asked. "That girl stole my bracelet," Patricia said instantly. "It was on the counter when she walked in, and now it's gone. She's the only other person who's been in Shebron here. You need to search her bag." Trevor looked Lily up and down, took in the faded clothes, the worn backpack, the dark skin, the fear in her eyes. Then he looked at Patricia, wealthy, white, important client, and in about 3 seconds, he decided who mattered more. "Miss," he said, turning to Lily, voice calm, like he was being reasonable. "I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding. If you show us what's in your bag, we can clear this up." "I didn't take anything," Lily said, tears already forming. "Please. I was just looking at that bracelet. I haven't touched anything else." "Then you won't mind showing us," he repeated. That's the moment where knowing your rights and being able to use them split apart. At 12 alone, surrounded by adults wearing authority-like armor, Lily didn't feel like she had a choice. Her hands shook so badly, it took her several tries to get the zipper open. She laid everything out on that glass piece by piece, like an inventory of a life. Library book about black pilots. 3 blue pens. A half-eaten granola bar. A worn iPhone. A little nylon wallet with a rainbow zipper. She opened it with trembling fingers. $150. Bills smoothed, carefully folded, stacked just so, because she'd counted them 3 times, because they mattered. A crumpled tissue, an eraser, a hair tie, and then she took off my bracelet, the one that hung too big on her wrist, and placed it gently on the counter. Trevor picked it up, squinting at the engraving, as if fake letters somehow looked different from real ones. "What's this?" he asked. "It's my mom's," Lily said. "She's a colonel in the Army. She gave it to me this morning. It has her name, her rank, her service number. She's at Fort Harrison right now. You can call and check, they'll tell you." He put it down like it was nothing. "Anything else in the bag?" he asked. She turned the backpack upside down and shook it. "Crumbs. A broken pencil, nothing more." "There," she said, tears spilling over now. "See, I don't have your bracelet. Can I please just go?" Patricia's face hardened. "She hid it somewhere else," she said. "Check her pockets. Call security. If you won't handle this, I will. I'm calling the police." And she pulled out her phone. Trevor glanced at his own panic flashing across his features. He didn't want police in his store. He didn't want a stolen property report attached to his location. He didn't want to pick a side between a rich white customer and a scared black kid. So he chose the side that looked safest for him. "I'll call mall security," he said. "Just to be safe. Just to be safe. If it were you, would you call that safe?" Mall security called the police, and that's where Officer Derek Harris enters the story for real. By the time he walked in at 11:14 a.m., Gregory had already fed him Patricia's narrative like it was the only version of events. Middle-aged white woman, expensive jewelry scared. Young black girl alone, acting suspicious. Manager and security both pointing in the same direction. If you know how bias works, you know how that equation ends. Derek Harris was 45, 18 years on the force, and had 12 excessive force complaints in his official file. Later, we'd find the other 11 that had been quietly resolved. But in that moment, all that history walked into the store inside his uniform and his sense of absolute authority. "All right, what do we have?" he said, scanning the room. Patricia jumped in like she'd been waiting her whole life for this. "She stole my diamond bracelet," she said. "It was right here, and then it wasn't, and she's the only one who could have taken it. I want her arrested." Ella tried again. "Officer, I was here the entire time," she said. "Lily was at that case over there. She never came near the counter. I didn't see her touch anything." Harris gave her the same question Trevor had. "Were you watching her every second?" he asked. "Well, I was focused on the transaction." "Then you can't be sure," he said, and turned to Lily. "What's your name?" he asked. "Lily Mitchell, sir," she answered, still respectful even through tears. "I didn't take anything. You can check the cameras. You can call my mom. Please." "Where are your parents?" he asked. "My mom is Colonel Sarah Mitchell, United States Army," she said. "She's at Fort Harrison today. She gave me her ID bracelet. It's right there. It has her name and rank. You can call the base, you can verify." He picked up the bracelet, looked at it for 2 seconds, dropped it again. "Kid, you can order these online for $20, he said, lip curling. "You can engrave whatever you want on them. That proves nothing." Ella took a breath. Officer, with respect, she never came near the counter. I had line of sight. He cut her off with the same line. Every second, he said again. "Were you watching her every single second?" "No, but..." "Then we're done here," he said. He turned to the only person in the room he treated like a reliable source. "Ma'am, are you willing to file a formal complaint?" he asked Patricia. "Absolutely," she said. "I want her arrested. People like that need to learn about consequences. People like that." He pulled out his cuffs. "All right, kid," he said. "Turn around, hands behind your back. You're under arrest for theft. And here is where my daughter did the thing I'd spent 12 years preparing her for, and the system punished her for it. Sir, I know my rights," she said, voice shaking but clear. "You haven't checked the cameras. You didn't find anything on me. I have the right to call my mother. I have the right to have her here. I'm not resisting. I'm just asking to call her." He did not like that. "You don't have rights until I say you do," he said. That sentence tells you everything you need to know about how he sees the world. He put a hand on her shoulder, not gentle, and shoved. She wasn't resisting. She wasn't pulling away. She wasn't running. She was just standing there crying. begging to call her mom. He shoved anyway. She went down hard, knees hitting concrete palms, scraping backpack flying. People in the mall gasped. Hands went to mouths. A couple phones jerked as their owners flinched. "Get up!" he snapped loud enough for everyone. "You're under arrest for theft and resisting an officer." "I'm not resisting," she sobbed. "I just want to call my mom." He grabbed one wrist, yanked it behind her back, snapped the cuff on so tight it left immediate grooves, did the same to the other. Then, for the benefit of the microphones around him, said, "Stop fighting me," even though the only thing struggling was her breathing. In her front pocket, pressed against her thigh, her phone was still there. Shaking wrists bound, she twisted just enough to slip her fingers in, found the emergency button we'd set up nights before. "If you ever really need me," I had said, "press this 3 times fast. It will call me, start recording, and send me your GPS location." She pressed it. 3 taps, 1 lifeline. Back at Fort Harrison, in the middle of a training exercise, my emergency phone went off with a tone I've heard in nightmares ever since. I answered before the first ring even finished. "Lily," I said, all ready, walking fast, heart pounding. "What's wrong, baby? Talk to me." All I could hear at first was sobbing, the kind that rips through your chest. Then words tumbled out in pieces. "Mom, please, they're arresting me. I didn't do anything. I just wanted to buy you a birthday present. I didn't take anything, Mom. It hurts. Please come, please. Please come." I was already running. "Where are you?" I demanded. "Who is with you?" Put the officer on the phone. A man's voice came on, casual, indifferent. "Ma'am, your daughter is being taken into custody for theft and resisting arrest," he said. "You can pick her up at Riverside Police Station." "Who is this?" I asked, voice going very flat. "Officer Derek Harris, Riverside PD," he said. "Badge number." I said. "Excuse me, your badge number," I repeated. "Now." He rattled it off, reflex, 281. "Officer Harris," I said. "This is Colonel Sarah Mitchell, United States Army. I am that child's mother. What probable cause do you have for her arrest? Did you review the security footage? Did you recover stolen property from her? Did you advise her of her rights? Did you allow her to contact her legal guardian? Did you use physical force on a minor who was not a physical threat to you or anyone else?" Silence. "Ma'am, your daughter was accused by a witness of stealing an $8,000 bracelet," he finally said. She refused to comply. "You can discuss this at the station." Accused by one witness, I said, with no evidence, no property recovered, no video reviewed, and you put your hands on my child. Here's what's going to happen. I am exactly 15 minutes away by air. You will not move her. You will not touch her again. You will provide medical attention immediately. If you fail to do any of that, I will personally see to it that you are facing federal civil rights charges under Title 18, Section 242, and violations involving a military dependent under Title 10. Do you understand me? Lady, I don't care who you think you are." The line went dead. He hung up on me. "Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind." I turned to my pilot. "Rodriguez Trusher." I said, "Change of plans. We're going to Riverside Plaza. Right now." "Yes, ma'am." He said no questions because he'd heard enough. While we lifted off, Lily sat bleeding on that concrete hands, cuffed behind her back, surrounded by strangers, filming her crying face. The crowd had grown. Some people were whispering that she must have done something wrong, because cops don't just do that for no reason. Some were shaking their heads. Some were already pulling up their camera roll to replay what they'd just captured. James Anderson, a black man in his 40s wearing a button-down and slacks, stepped forward with his phone still recording. "Officer," he said, voice steady, but angry. "I saw everything. That girl never touched that woman's jewelry. And you shoved a 12-year-old child to the ground for asking to call her mother. That is not okay. Harris squared his shoulders. Sir, you need to step back and let me do my job, he said. I am not interfering. James replied. I am a witness. You want to get arrested for obstruction. Harris shot back, hand inching toward his handcuffs. James held his ground for 3 long heartbeats, then stepped back just enough to avoid giving Harris the excuse he clearly wanted, but he didn't stop recording. A few others spoke up too. Maria Gonzalez mentioned her nephew's run-in with this same cop. An older white man muttered that pushing a kid like that seemed excessive. A young black woman said she recognized him from an incident with her boyfriend. The story was expanding before my boots ever touched that parking lot. 8 minutes later, the sound over their heads changed. The consistent mall soundtrack of music and chatter and escalator hum got drowned out by a low, growing thump that you feel in your rib before your brain catches up. People looked up, hands going to their faces to block the sun. A Black Hawk helicopter came into view heading straight for the plaza. Lily tilted her head back, squinting through swollen eyes, and a small, cracked smile spread over her face. Mom's here, she whispered. We set that bird down in the parking lot, like it was any other landing zone. Rotor wash, scattered bags, flattened hats made people hold their skirts down and their phones up. Car alarms started wailing. It was chaos, but controlled chaos. The kind I trained for. The door slid open. I stepped out. I wasn't in my dress blues. I was in full combat uniform, desert camo tactical vest, my rank glinting on my chest boots that had been places I don't talk about at dinner. Captain Rodriguez climbed out behind me in his military police vest. Lieutenant Barnes followed with a tablet in hand, already online. But the thing that made people step aside wasn't the gear. It was my face. I walked straight toward the knot of uniforms and cell phones, and curious eyes scanning until my gaze landed on Lily. On her bloody knee, her scraped palms, the red circles around her wrists. Officer Harris. I called out, voice calm-controlled. He turned, probably expecting some worried mom he could brush off. Instead, he saw me. Release my daughter, I said now. Ma'am, your daughter is under arrest for theft and resisting an officer he started. If you'll come down to the station, we can under arrest based on what I cut in. Did you review the security footage? Did you recover stolen property? Did you take statements from multiple witnesses? Did you advise a minor of her rights? Did you allow her to call her guardian? Did you use force on a child who was not physically threatening you or anyone else? He opened his mouth, closed it, swallowed. Ma'am, I need you to step back, he tried again. You're interfering with a police investigation. I am Colonel Sarah Mitchell, United States Army, I said, stepping in closer. This is Captain Rodriguez of Military Police, and that is Lieutenant Barnes from JAG Corps. We can do this 2 ways. Way 1, you uncuff my daughter, document her injuries, and stand by while we review what you've just done. Way 2, I call General Adams, who plays golf with your chief, and we discuss what a federal civil rights investigation looks like when it lands on your department. Your call. His jaw clenched. He didn't move. So Captain Rodriguez did. Sweetheart Rodriguez said, stepping forward, voice soft for Lily. Let's get these off you, okay? Your mom's here now. You're safe. He took the key from Harris without asking, unlocked the cuffs, and as soon as her hands were free, Lily threw herself into my arms. I wrapped her up and held her like I did when she was a baby, breathing in coconut shampoo and sweat, and the sharp chemical smell of fear. I've got you, baby. I whispered, you're safe. I'm here. You did nothing wrong. She clung to me like I was the only solid thing left in the world. I just wanted to buy you a bracelet, she sobbed. I didn't take anything, I promise I didn't. I know I said I believe you. And now we're going to make them see what actually happened. I pulled back, wiped her face with my thumb, then turned back to Harris and the others. the mother in me stepping aside so the colonel could take the front seat. Now I said, voice steady, "Let's talk about facts." We ended up crammed into the jewelry store's back office. Me, Lily, on a folding chair with a bag of ice on her knee. Harris by the door. Patricia clutching her bag like a life preserver. Trevor at the computer. Ella against the wall. Rodriguez and Barnes framing the doorway like bookends. "Pull up the security footage from 10:30 to 11, I told Trevor. His fingers shook a little as he did it. On screen, 4 windows popped up, 4 angles of the store timestamps marching in the corner. We watched Patricia walk in at 10:32, watched her demand service, watched Ella retrieve the necklace. We watched her take off her earrings and bracelet and lay them on the glass. We watched Lily enter at 10:43 and go straight to the modest case, watched her stay there, hands clasped in front of her, looking, not touching. "Note," I said out loud. "My daughter never approaches this counter." We watched Ella finish the sale, watched Patricia put her earrings back on, pick up her phone, her keys. And then, there it was, pick up her bracelet and drop it into her purse at 10:47:23. "Freeze it," Barnes said. Trevor paused the image, and there on the screen, plain as daylight, was Patricia's hand, putting her own bracelet into her own bag. Mrs. Reynolds Barnes read from his tablet. "Please confirm that is you, is it not?" Her mouth opened closed. I must have... "You're twisting this," she stammered. "I thought I made a mistake." "No," I said calmly. "You made an accusation. That's different." We let the footage roll. At 10:48:45, she walked out. At 10:49:55, she burst back in, already panicked, already pointing. Between those times, I said, "My daughter never comes within 15 feet of that counter. She never touches your property. Yet you were so sure, so certain that you demanded her bag be searched. You demanded the police be called, and you stood by while an officer shoved her to the ground. So let me ask you, where is your bracelet?" Silence. She swallowed. I must have forgotten I put it in my purse," she said finally. "It was a mistake." "How many mistakes like that have you made?" I asked. Captain Rodriguez looked down at his screen. "Patricia Ann Reynolds," he said, age 52. 52. 4 prior incidents of false accusations in the last 3 years, all involving young people of color. One at a restaurant, accused a Latino teen of stealing her wallet. Security found it at her house. No charges against her. One at a grocery store, accused a black employee named Jerome Washington of theft. The items were in her car with receipts, but he was fired anyway. One at the DMV claimed a black woman threatened her. Multiple witnesses said she lied. Another at your country club, multiple complaints about discriminatory remarks, settled quietly. Patricia's face drained of color. "You can't say that here," she snapped. "That's private. Public record," Rodriguez said, "plus internal complaints." Then I turned to Harris. "And you," I said, "Officer Derek Harris, badge 2841. How many complaints have you had?" "Internal file lists 12. Rodriguez said, not giving Harris a chance. Cross-referencing with federal databases and settlement records brings that total to 23. 23 complaints, 11 resolved via settlements with non-disclosure agreements, mostly from Black and Latino citizens. Total payout around $47,000. Mandatory bias training ordered 2 years ago, but the training center has no record he ever attended. So either the records were falsified or he never showed up." You could feel the air leave the room. Store manager, Trevor Wilson Rodriguez, added, "Has filed 23 theft reports in the last 18 months. 19 of those list black customers as suspects. only 2 resulted in convictions. That is an 89% false accusation rate. Ella finally stepped away from the wall. He'd told me to watch certain customers, she said. He gave me training materials with pictures of what he called the type who steals. They were all black or brown. I kept the emails. I thought I might need them someday. Miss Johnson Barnes said, "Would you be willing to provide those emails for the investigation?" "Yes," she said, "absolutely." Right then my phone rang. "General Adams." "Sarah," he said. "Chief Thompson just called me, says we have a situation, and he wants it handled quietly. What do you need?" "Sir," I said, eyes on Harris, on Patricia, on my daughter's bandaged knee. "What I need is the opposite of quiet. I need loud. I need federal. I need structural. You have JAG. You have my backing." He said, "Make it count." Chief Thompson arrived 20 minutes later, sweating through his dress shirt, smile plastered on, trying to project calm. He walked into that back office, took one look at the frozen frame of Patricia, putting the bracelet in her purse, the cluster of federal officers, the wounded child, and I could practically see the PR spin dying in his throat. "Colonel Mitchell," he said, extending a hand, "I'm sure we can all just—" "Chief Thompson," I said, not taking it, "your officer assaulted my daughter on camera after she was falsely accused by a woman with a history of making false accusations against people of color. Your department has 23 complaints on this one officer alone, most of which you buried. Your city has paid out almost $500,000 in settlements for excessive force in the last 5 years. We are past, let's all calm down. With respect, Colonel, the Army doesn't have authority over my department," he started, "which is why the FBI Civil Rights Division has already been notified." I said, "And which is why?" "Lieutenant Barnes here has a file full of emails with your name on them, closing complaints as resolved, with no real investigation. So let me be very clear about what's going to happen next." I laid it out like an operations order. "1 Officer Harris is suspended immediately without pay, pending a full federal investigation into every complaint in his file. 2, your department implements real reforms. Body cameras on every officer footage, automatically uploaded to an independent server. No deletion, no technical malfunctions, without automatic review. 3, you establish a civilian oversight board with subpoena power composed of community members. Not law enforcement, that reviews every use of force and every complaint with findings made public. 4, no more NDAs for victims of police misconduct. If taxpayer money is used to settle a case, taxpayers get to know. 5, mandatory bias training conducted by external experts every 6 months with actual assessments, not a slideshow in the break room. "That's not how this works," he protested. "We need committees' time to draft policies, union negotiations. You have until midnight to send a concrete plan to Lieutenant Barnes," I said. "Or I go out into that parking lot in front of every camera out there and explain exactly how you have been running this department. Then I take it to every news outlet that will listen. Then I testify about it. I am very good at talking to committees, Chief. Ask Congress." As if on cue, Judge Helen Davis walked in. Federal judge. Reputation for not playing games. "Chief Thompson," she said after Barnes gave her the bullet points. "Take the offer, because if this ends up in my courtroom, you're looking at a consent decree, massive liability, and a resume gap you will never recover from." He sagged. "We'll cooperate," he muttered. "We'll implement the changes, not just on paper," I said, "in practice. Because this community is done being quiet." I looked at Lily. "Come on, baby," I said softly. "Let's get that knee taken care of." When we walked back through the mall, the crowd parted. Someone started clapping. Then another. I don't think they were clapping for me as some fancy colonel with a helicopter. They were clapping because somebody finally said no more. Now before you say, "Well, that's a neat, tidy ending, let me tell you. That was just the beginning." At Riverside Medical Center, Dr. Rebecca Wilson cleaned gravel out of Lily's knee, examined her wrists, documented everything. She took pictures of the bruises, the abrasions, the way the handcuff marks encircled her skin. "Nothing broken," she said gently to Lily. "But these bruises are going to be with you for a few weeks. And we're not just talking about your knee." She handed me a card. "Dr. Chen," she said, "child psychologist, trauma specialist. I strongly recommend you get Lily in to see her. Physical injuries heal, but the brain holds on to things like this in ways that show up later. Nightmares, anxiety, not wanting to go places that feel unsafe now. That's not weakness, that's normal. But she doesn't have to carry it alone." We made the appointment. On the drive home, Lily sat with her head against the window, watching the world roll by in streaks of green and gray. "Mom," she said quietly, "why did they hate me so much?" I was just standing there. I swallowed hard. There are some questions no child should ever have to ask, and no parent should ever have to answer. But we don't get to choose. "I don't know if they hate you specifically," I said slowly. "Some people don't understand their own prejudice. But there are people who will see your skin and your age and your hair and decide who you are before you speak. There are people who will look at you and see a threat instead of a 12-year-old girl trying to buy her mother a bracelet." "Then what's the point of being good?" she asked, tears sliding down her cheeks again. "Of following the rules of doing everything right if they're just going to treat me like that anyway. You don't do the right thing for them," I said, reaching over to take her hand. "You do it for you. Being good doesn't guarantee the world will treat you fairly. I wish it did. But it means that when people like Harris and Patricia try to twist the story, you can stand there and say, 'I know who I am. I know what I did. I know you're lying.' And baby, this isn't just about you anymore. When we fight this, we're fighting for every kid they've done this to." "Are you tired of fighting?" she asked. "All the time," I said honestly. "But I'm more tired of losing people like Justin. And now I have you to fight for too. So no, I'm not done." "Then I'm not done either," she said, and she meant it. Over the next weeks and months, that one ugly scene at a mall jewelry store turned into something else entirely. The DOJ dug through Officer Harris's record and confirmed everything we already knew. Patterns of stopping suspicious young people of color complaints that magically disappeared. Reports that didn't line up with body cam footage. He was indicted on federal civil rights charges and assault on a minor. His badge, his gun, his pension, all of it hung in the balance. Patricia was charged with filing a false police report. On its own, that's a misdemeanor. But the civil suits that followed were what really hit. Lily's case opened the door for other victims. That grocery store employee, the teen at the restaurant, the woman at the DMV, to step forward. Once they realized they weren't alone, the fear started cracking. The lawyers laid it all out. The footage of her putting the bracelet in her purse, the recordings of her saying people like that. The prior reports, the pattern of targeting black and brown young people. In the end, her attorneys begged her to settle. She paid out around $500,000 split between Lily and the others, and as part of the settlement, she had to record a public apology video admitting what she'd done. It went viral. Her charity board positions evaporated her country club. Suspended her neighbors, avoided her at the grocery store. Some people said it was too harsh. Others remembered the lives she'd quietly damaged before anyone ever turned a camera on. Trevor lost his job when a civil rights audit of the store revealed his policy of profiling. The company paid a hefty fine and implemented real training and oversight. Ella was promoted to manager. She enrolled in law school at night specializing in civil rights, because once you've seen how the system really works up close, it's hard to go back to pretending. Chief Thompson tried to write it out, but you can't stand in front of a city council with open records showing you buried complaint after complaint, paid out settlement after settlement, and still say we take these matters seriously with a straight face. He resigned under pressure. The city cut his benefits. A black woman with a reputation for police reform took over as interim chief. The department didn't just get a memo. It got rebuilt from the studs up. Body cameras on every officer, no exceptions. Footage uploads automatically. No one can accidentally lose it. A civilian oversight board with subpoena power and real teeth reviews every use of force. Complaints go directly to them, not into some internal affairs black hole. No more NDAs to buy silence. Riverside started hosting Know Your Rights workshops, legal aid hotlines, mental health services for victims of police violence. Businesses at the mall had to pass anti-discrimination audits or risk losing their leases. A youth advocacy program sprang up, funded in part by settlement money, helping teenagers understand both their rights and their responsibilities. Here's the part that surprised me. Our case didn't just change one officer's career or one woman's reputation. It turned Riverside into a case study. Other cities started copying the model. Legislators started quoting our oversight structure in hearings. For once, the phrase, "What happened to that little black girl?" was being used as a reason to write better laws, not just as clickbait. 6 months after that awful day, Lily stood beside me on a small stage at the Riverside Community Center, looking out at a packed room. James Anderson was there now, a member of the Oversight Board. Maria Gonzalez was there, her nephew's case reopened. Ella was there, law textbooks in her bag. Even Lisa Harris sat in the back row, Officer Harris's mother, with tissues in her lap. "Thank you for coming," I said into the mic. But I wasn't playing politician, I was just talking. 6 months ago, my daughter went to the mall to buy me a gift and came home with bruises on her knees and wrists and a whole city watching what happened to her on their phones. I stepped aside and let Lily speak. I was terrified she told them I felt completely helpless. For weeks I had nightmares. I didn't want to go outside or go into stores or even walk past a cop car. I thought maybe it was my fault, like if I had talked different or worn different clothes or just stayed home, it wouldn't have happened. She took a breath, but Dr. Chen helped me understand that what I felt was normal, that my brain was trying to protect me, and that being scared didn't mean I was weak. My mom helped me see that even when people in power treat you like you're nothing, you still have rights. You still matter. And that telling my story could help other people, not just me. She looked right at a row of teenagers, leaned halfway back in their folding chairs. "If you've ever felt like you were being watched for no reason," she said. "If you've ever been stopped because you matched a description that sounded like half your neighborhood. If you've ever been called you people to your face or behind your back, I want you to know you're not crazy, you're not alone, and it doesn't have to stay that way." James talked about what it meant to sit on the oversight board, to watch body cam footage late into the night, to recommend firing officers and actually see it happen. Ella talked about the day she decided to save those emails, how scared she'd been to speak up, and how watching Lily stand up made her realize silence is also a choice, and not a neutral one. Then Lisa Harris stood up. "I'm Derek Harris's mother," she said, voice shaking. "And I came here because for years I told myself my son was just doing a hard job. I believed his version when complaints came in. I said he was being targeted because he was a cop. Watching that video, hearing these stories, I can't say that anymore. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for the chance to learn how to be better, to not be part of the problem." You could have heard a pin drop. "Thank you for coming," I told her. It takes courage to face what our loved ones have done. I hope you keep coming back. Keep listening. Keep talking to other parents about how we raise kids who see everyone as worthy of dignity. After the workshop, a little girl with braids, 9 years old, named Aisha, came up to Lily. "I was really scared when I saw your video," she whispered. "My mom works 2 jobs. She can't come in a helicopter like your mom did. I was scared that if something happened to me, nobody would come." Lily knelt so they were eye to eye. "You know what she said?" Softly. "The helicopter made good video, but it's not why we won. We won because people like Mr. Anderson spoke up, because Miss Johnson kept those emails, because all those people kept recording instead of putting their phones down, because people like Judge Davis and my mom know the law and used it. You have people too now. There's a hotline. There's an oversight board. There are lawyers and community members watching. And if something happens, you can call. You're not alone." Aisha hugged her quick and ran back to her mother. That night, for the first time in a long time, Lily and I went back to our porch to look at the stars. For weeks, she hadn't wanted to be outside after dark. Trauma has a way of turning ordinary places into danger zones. But slowly, with therapy and time, and a whole lot of conversations, the world started to feel a little less sharp around the edges. "Mom," she asked, eyes on the sky, "do you really think things will change? Or will people just forget when the next bad thing hits the news?" "Some people will forget," I said, honest as always. "Some will pretend they never cared, will say. We made too big a deal out of it. But something real shifted. We have an oversight board now. We have transparent data. We have kids and parents who know their rights and know they're not alone. That doesn't mean everything's fixed. It means there's less darkness to hide in. The only way this slips back is if we stop paying attention." She fiddled with the bracelet on her wrist. "I'm glad you gave me this," she said, even though it caused all that drama. "I'm glad. It meant you could prove who I was. It meant you could find me. That bracelet helped me convince people who should have believed you from the start," I said. "But it didn't make you worthy of protection. You were worthy the moment you were born. With or without steel on your wrist, with or without a colonel for a mom, you are worthy of respect. Never forget that." She was quiet for a moment. Dr. Chen said, "Sometimes the hardest thing that happens to you can define you in a good way if you decide what you do with it," she said. "I've been thinking. I want to keep doing those workshops, keep telling my story. If it helps even one kid feel less scared, or stops one cop from doing what he did to me, maybe it wasn't for nothing." I pulled her in close. "You already changed more than you know," I said. "And we're just getting started. So now I'm going to turn from my porch to you, wherever you're watching this, whatever your life looks like. Because Lily's story isn't just Lily's. Right now, as this video plays somewhere, a kid is being followed around a store for looking suspicious. Somewhere, a teenager is being stopped for matching a description that's basically exists while black. Somewhere, a parent is being told their child resisted when all they did was ask why. Not everyone has a colonel with a helicopter on standby. That's why this can't just be about my rank or my daughter's bravery. It has to be about you too. When you see someone being profiled, do you look away? Or do you say, "I saw that, and it's not right"? When a friend or family member says, "You people," do you laugh it off or do you ask, "What do you mean by that?" When you're the one with the power, as a manager, a teacher, a juror, a cop, a judge, do you use it to protect or to punish? If it were you on that concrete, hands cuffed behind your back, knee bleeding, a grown man shouting, "Stop," resisting at you, while you begged for your mom, what would you want the people around you to do? Just film or speak or step in? Do you think what happened to Lily was fair? Do you think the consequences for Harris and Patricia and Trevor were too harsh or not harsh enough? Should we be more forgiving? Less? Where is that line for you? I told you at the start this story would be messy and personal and bigger than one family. I'm not here to wrap it all up in a tidy happily ever after. Riverside is better than it was. It's not perfect. There are still bad stops. There are still ugly remarks. There are still kids who flinch when they see flashing lights. Change is not a straight line. It's a tug of war. But 4 officers with patterns like Harris's are gone. 3 major policies are different. Dozens of young people know their rights in a way they didn't before. Multiple cities have looked at what we did and said, we could do that here. That's not everything. It's something. So now it's your turn. If this story made you angry, if it made you cry, if it reminded you of something that happened to you or to someone you love, don't just click away and let that feeling evaporate. Do something with it. Drop a comment and tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've ever been followed in a store, stopped for matching a description, or falsely accused because of how you look. If you disagree with anything I've said, say that too. Tell me why. Let's talk about it. If you think the punishments were too much or not enough, I want to hear that. Hit like if you believe kids shouldn't have to memorize their rights just to go to the mall. Share this video with someone who still says, it's just a few bad apples or racism is over, or that stuff only happens on TV. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because we're going to keep telling stories like this. Stories where the truth doesn't stay buried, where courage pushes back against corruption, where ordinary people make choices that change everything for someone else. Because somewhere right now, a child like Lily is being looked at like a suspect instead of a kid. The only question is, when that moment happens in front of you, who are you going to be? The one who looks away, the one who films and walks off, the one who calls the cops on a lie, or the one who steps forward and says, I saw what really happened, and I'm not going to be quiet. Think about it. Really. Think about it, then tell me in the comments.